Welcome to How to Cook That. I'm Reardon, and today we have the best chocolate truffles recipes, part 3. I asked you which ones you wanted, and these are the top 10 chocolates that you wanted in your box of chocolates. Coming in at number 10, we had liqueur chocolates of all various types of liqueur, so we'll just make one and you can follow that same recipe. To make the filling, you'll need cream, butter, the liqueur of your choice, and of course chocolate. And you need to add the cream and the butter to a bowl and microwave that. All of the recipe quantities that you'll need for all of the truffles are on the howtocookthat.net website, and I'll link to the chocolate truffle recipe page in the description just below this video for you. Once that butter is melted, add the chocolate and stir it through until you have a nice smooth ganache. Add in your alcohol and stir that through as well, and then just put that to one side. Fill a chocolate mould with tempered chocolate. Now this mould is actually just a tray that came with some little baby food containers that I have, so just look through your kitchen and see what you've already got. Tip it up and tap it on the back to tip out the excess chocolate, and doing this just gives a nice thin layer of chocolate all over the chocolate mould. Turn it back the right way up and scrape off the excess, and then just leave that at room temperature to set firm. Then fill each mould with a little bit of ganache, and I'm using a shallow mould for this one because it's quite strong, so I don't want heaps of filling in these. Top it with more chocolate. Now for all of these truffles, you want to make sure you temper your chocolate, and what that means is that you bring it to the right temperature so that it sets firmly once it's come back to room temperature, and there's a video explaining all of that on the channel for you to watch. If you don't want to temper, you can use compound chocolate instead, but then it doesn't taste as good. Add a piece of chocolate transfer sheet on top, and this is just plastic which has a coloured cocoa butter pattern printed onto it, and the heat of the chocolate will melt that cocoa butter, and then that pattern will stay on the chocolate. So just let it set, and then once it's set, peel off the plastic, and you can see the pattern just stays there and makes it look beautiful. Turn the mould over and tap it to tip them out, and you've got these beautiful looking little chocolates with a layer of liqueur ganache in the middle. Coming in at number 9 was wasabi. Now personally this is not for me, but some people love wasabi. I'm colouring my mould, and I'll show you how to do that later on at one of our other truffles. And then fill your mould with chocolate just like we did for the first one, and then tip out the excess and neaten it up. With that extra chocolate each time you tip it out, just fold your paper in half, scrape it all to one side and tip it back into your bowl. Once the shells are set, fill each one with some wasabi. Now you could just add a tiny bit here or go the full hog like I am. Top them up with chocolate and then flatten off the tops. Now add a chocolate transfer sheet on top if you want to, like we did before, and gently rub your finger on each one to make sure it's actually touching the chocolate with the whole pattern. If you like wasabi, that's great. If not, why not fill the rest of them up with something nice and make it a bit like one of the Bean Boozled chocolate things so that you don't know what you're going to get. You could get wasabi or you could get something yummy. Once it's set, peel the transfer sheet off and tap on the bench to get them out. Pipe a small drop of chocolate onto some non-stick baking paper and then place the hemisphere on an angle on top so that the flat patterned side is facing up. And now you get a nice one or a wasabi one. I wonder which one you'll get.
This one just tastes like chocolate.
Coming in at number 8 was cheesecake chocolate truffles, and these taste so good. To make them, place your cream cheese, sugar, flour and salt into a mixer and mix on high speed. Turn on your oven to 160C or 320F while that's mixing, and then once your mixture is thick and smooth, add your egg, vanilla extract, cream and mix it all in well until it looks like this. It's a bit like melting ice cream dripping off there. Pour the cheesecake mixture into a small bowl and tap it on the bench to get rid of any air bubbles. Place it into a larger bowl and then pour some water down the side of the larger bowl so that it comes halfway up the side of the bowl that has the cheesecake in it. Place that into the oven and bake it for about 30 minutes or until it's firm in the middle when you give it a little shake. For the base of our cheesecake, mix together butter, flour, cocoa powder, sugar and 1 egg until it forms a ball. Roll it out between 2 sheets of baking paper and just bake that in the oven for 10 minutes. Then take it out, and while it's still hot, use 2 forks to crumble it up. You can just buy some biscuits and crush them together if you prefer, but this way you can flavour it how you want. Place some butter into a bowl and melt it, and you can do this in a saucepan if you don't have a microwave. Then add your cookie crumbs and stir them in well until you've got that butter sort of evenly coated all the way around it. Tip it onto some baking paper and squash it down using a fork. Then add more baking paper on top and use a rolling pin to squash it more and make it thin and even layer. And you can use 2 sticks. I've got 2 painting stirring sticks either side here just to guide you to get it even thickness. And then place that into the freezer to chill. Once it's cold, it will stick together. Just use a circle cutter to cut out bases and little circles there for our truffles. Once your cheesecake is cooled, you can place that mixture into a bowl and whip it using electric mixers. Place that into a piping bag fitted with a star-shaped nozzle and pipe a little star by squeezing the bag and then stop squeezing and pull it up. And once they're finished, the cheesecake truffles will need to be stored in the fridge and they'll last about 1 week. Put those piped cheesecakes into the freezer to firm up and then place them onto a cooling rack with baking paper underneath. Pipe chocolate over the top of each one, letting it drip all the way around to encase the filling. And then once they're set, you can leave them just like that, or rest them on something round and smaller than the actual truffle and pipe lines of white chocolate from the top down around to the base. So you have like a swirl sort of pattern on those. At number 7, we have pumpkin truffles, much to my kids' disgust. They don't like pumpkin, but they did actually like these pumpkin truffles, so that's saying something. To make them, take some pumpkin and chop it up into chunks and place it on a roasting dish with a little bit of water and cover that with foil and roast it in the oven for about 40 minutes or until your pumpkin is soft, and then you can let that cool right down. Remove the rind and measure out 160 grams or 5.6 ounces of your pumpkin. Mash that up and then add your cream and the butter and stir them all together and then heat that in the microwave until the butter is melted. Add your chocolate and then stir that through until that's melted and you've got a nice smooth mixture. Now you can add the spices of your choice to that. Some countries have pumpkin spice and you can add that to taste. If you don't have pumpkin spice, then you can make your own. Just mix together cinnamon, nutmeg, ginger and cloves, and I'll put the quantities for those on the website. And then I'm going to add about half a teaspoon of that mixture into the pumpkin, and it just gives like a pumpkin pie flavour to it. Pour all of that into a blender and blend it until it's nice and smooth. And if you don't have a blender, I'll show you an alternative when we make the next truffle. Pour that into a bag, twist the top, fold it under and place it on a plate in the fridge to cool. Fill a silicone mould with white chocolate and then just tip out the excess. Neaten up the tops and then let them set. Once the shells are set, fill each one up with the pumpkin ganache and then seal off the tops with white chocolate. Smooth that off using a spatula, and once they're set, you can just push them out of the moulds. Now you can keep these pumpkin ones in the fridge for a few days. Next we have banana truffles. Now to make these, take 2 bananas, some chocolate, butter and orange juice. And in a saucepan, mash those bananas with a fork, then add the juice and stir it through. Heat it over the stovetop and then add in the butter and stir that through until it's melted. Remove that from the heat, add in your chocolate and stir that in. Then immediately pour it into a fine sieve and using a spatula or the back of a spoon, push it through the sieve. Now this is just making sure it's really smooth, and if you have a blender, you can use a blender to do this instead. It will take longer pushing it through a sieve, but it will work just as well. Line a container with baking paper and pour in the banana mixture. Level off the top and place that in your freezer. Once it's frozen, slice it into cubes. Now you can of course pipe this banana mixture into the centre of moulded truffles for a neater finished truffle, but this is just in case you don't have any moulds. I'm just giving you options and you can use this option with the others as well. Take one of the cubes, place it onto the end of a fork and place it into your tempered chocolate and spoon more chocolate over it. Lift up your fork, tap it on the side of the bowl to get rid of any excess, and then place it onto some baking paper. Once they're set, you can trim off any extra chocolate that you've got around the base there to neaten them up, and then pipe a couple of stripes of extra chocolate onto the top. And these taste of fresh banana. They are really nice, and you can store them in the fridge for about 4 days. Next we have nougat. Now I actually have a video on my channel already showing you how to make nougat. All what you need to do to find that is just click on How to Cook That under any of my videos, and that will take you through to the channel. And then you can click on videos and you'll see a list of all of my videos, or you could click on one of the playlists on the front page and see everything under that category. Slice your nougat into triangles and then dip them into your tempered chocolate. Tap the fork on the side just like we did before and place them, instead of onto baking paper this time, onto a textured plastic sheet or a texture mat. Once it's set, you can just peel it off and you see you've got the pattern there on your chocolate. Use a knife to neaten around the base, and if you like you can brush a little luster dust onto the chocolate just to highlight the pattern that you've got there. And these are one of my husband's favourites. He loves nougat. Lots of requests for Oreo truffles, and let's have some fun with these. Instead of making them how everybody else makes them, let's make them a little bit different to make them a bit more special. Open up your truffle, take out that centre and roll it into a rough ball. Now we're going to place all these in the freezer, so it doesn't matter if they're not perfect yet because we'll be able to neaten them up once they're cold. Place the biscuit part into a bag and crush them. If you roll the rolling pin over them, you'll get rid of any little bits and big bits that you've got in there and make it nice and crumbly. Place some cream and chocolate into a bowl and microwave it in short bursts until it's melted, and then stir it till it's smooth. Pour in the Oreo crumbs and mix together really well, using the back of your spoon to kind of squash it all together. Take the middles out of the freezer and re-roll them to make smooth spheres. Then take half a tablespoon of the Oreo crumb mixture, add a ball of frosting to the middle and close over the top to hide it completely, and give it a little roll between your hands, and then we're going to place those back into the freezer. Once they are chilled, drop them into the tempered chocolate, take them out with a fork, tap them on the side of the bowl and then carefully place them onto the baking paper. And once they're set and you bite into them, you'll reveal the Oreo ganache and then the frosting in the centre. Next most requested was marshmallows or s'mores. They're kind of similar there. To make these, make 1 quantity of the sugar cookie recipe and roll it out between 2 sheets of baking paper, and then cut lots of little circles. Remove the excess dough and bake them in the oven for 6 minutes or until just turning golden. If you want to colour the outside of your chocolates, you can colour white chocolate using powdered oil-based food colour. If you use liquid colour, it might make it seize, and if you're not using oil-based colour, it's not going to dissolve into the chocolate, so you're not going to get a nice colour. Then you can either cover the whole mould with that coloured chocolate, or you can put streaks of different colours. If you're using streaks, then let them set up first, and then top it with more chocolate in a different colour, so I'm using the white chocolate here, and tip it out just like we've done before. Then neaten up the top and let that set. Now we're going to add half a marshmallow into each one and then top it off with one of your little cookies. Cover it with chocolate to seal it and smooth off the tops, and then once they're set you can just tip them out of the mould. And now for honeycomb. These are one of my personal favourites, but I have a whole video showing you how to make honeycomb already, so you can go to the channel and watch that. Pour your honeycomb into a bowl lined with non-stick baking paper and leave it to cool completely, and that will take a few hours. Once it is cold, turn it out of the bowl and smash it. Now you can just dip the big chunks into chocolate, but if you want neat and even chocolates, then take the smaller bits and crush them a bit more. You don't want powder, you just want little pieces, so don't completely squash them. For chocolate, you don't have to use boring shaped moulds. You can use whatever you like. I'm using these little Lego man ones. Just fill them up with chocolate, tip out the excess, neaten up the tops, and then add your honeycomb chips. top it up with more chocolate, neaten up the backs, and because we are encasing this honeycomb in chocolate, it's going to stay yummy and crisp because none of the moist air can get to it. Once it is set, push the back of the mould to get them out, and you have an army of little honeycomb chocolate Lego men. And now we have cookies and cream. Let's make this one extra special. For the cookie part, take some biscuit crumbs and place them on a baking tray and bake them for a few minutes until they are nice and crispy. Add some vanilla extract to your cream and heat that up. And then add the chocolate to the hot cream and stir it until you've got that nice smooth vanilla ganache. Pour in your crumbs. Now I found my crumbs softened a bit because of the cream and the ganache. They didn't stay super crispy. So if you want them to be crisp, you're going to need to coat them in butter before you add them. So do that just like we did with the cheesecake base crumbs, but instead of squashing them together, we're just going to tip them in here. For a bit more of a fancy presentation, you can use coloured cocoa butter. Scrape a tiny bit out of the bottle using a knife and melt that in the microwave. And then use a brush to add a thin layer of the coloured cocoa butter to your moulds. Now this mould that I'm using is just half of a cheap ice sphere cube tray, and you can get silicone moulds that are specifically for making chocolates, but they are quite expensive. So just look around and see what you can find. Now if you can't get coloured cocoa butter, you could just use plain cocoa butter and add an oil-based food colouring to it. Use a dry brush and brush that with gold luster dust, and then tap the mould on the bench firmly to get rid of any excess dust. Pour in your tempered chocolate to fill them up, and then tip out the excess and neaten up the tops there like we've done all along, and allow that to set. Fill each hemisphere with cookies and cream ganache, and then top that with chocolate and then neaten up the back. Once they're set, tap the mould on the bench to get them out of the mould. Spread some tempered dark chocolate onto a sheet of baking paper and tap it to get rid of any air bubbles and smooth it out, then let that set. Then spread some tempered white chocolate over the top, and while it's still melted, drop the hemispheres onto it. Don't let it set. We want them to sink down so you get like that sort of pattern to it. Once it's starting to firm up, place a circle cutter over the top and push it down hard so that you get through the white and the dark chocolate, and then push it out of the cutter, and you have a pretty truffle with a ring of dark and white chocolate. And you can present your beautiful truffles in rows on tiles if you're selling them individually, or box them up as gifts. Homemade truffles are such a special present, but don't forget to warn them about the wasabi. Subscribe to How to Cook That for more chocolates, cakes and desserts. Click here to go to the channel to watch the video on tempering and the first 2 chocolate truffle videos. Here for the recipes on the website, and all of those links are below. Have a great week, and I'll see you on Friday.